I saw a video by Ollie Richards from just a few days ago titled 16 Things the English Language Can't Do. And it appears to be basically he's just repeating a NativLang video from a few years back. The thumbnail says what English can't do, and the title is features English is missing but most other languages have. Okay, so NativLang is full of shit because none of the things that are listed are actually present in most languages. Also, some of them don't exist in English specifically because of other things that English does have. So it's not like there's even a choice. Because of what English does have, it sort of prohibits some of these other things. And then all this Ollie Richards guy is just basically repeating it, although I do think he organized it better. So I'm going to go off of his organization here. I think there's too much here for me to do it in just one video, so I'm going to do it probably in multiple videos. But here's the categories in Mr. Richards' video. 1. Missing words. Yeah. This isn't a category. This is bullshit. Because any language is going to have missing words that are apparent, that are available to other languages. The problem that I have with this one, though, is that the examples given are not single words, usually. They're mostly phrases. I love it particularly when they give a German example, because German just... what counts as a word in German can be obviously a noun phrase in English. It'll be morpheme for morpheme identical. They just don't write spaces. And that makes it a word. Like Panzerschokolade. Or Thursday. Thursday is literally just the day of Thor. Thor's day. Is that one word, or is it 2 words, or is it 3 words? It depends where you put the spaces. So, yeah. Also, one of the examples that he gave, if I recall correctly, was literally, like, it's a Spanish one, and it's literally 2 words. There's a space in it. How are you counting that as a word? What are you doing? Anyway, whatever. The second one, both his video and the NativLang video refer to it as exclusivity, but that's a stupid... I mean, yeah, but the idea is inclusive versus exclusive of we. Just kind of nitpicking about this pronoun. There's a lot of other pronouns that English lacks that are much more interesting and useful. I'm not sure why this is the one that they picked out. Maybe it's because they're stupid and this is the one they could understand. The third one is tone or pitch accent. And this one English can't do because of what it does do. English uses pitch contours and tone contours and things like that to indicate part of speech. So like produce versus produce. It's either a noun or a verb, or kind of its valency is indicated. So there's some of these where there isn't a verb form, but there's an adjective form. And also there's some forms where there isn't a noun form, but there's an adjective. So you can be a verb and an adjective, or an adjective and a noun, or a verb and a noun, right? Any of those combinations. And the where the stress goes tells you which one it is, whether it has the higher valence or the lower valence, right? So produce, all right, with stress on the first one, produce. That's noun. Produce, that's the verb. Or that pattern with the rising at the end is the higher valence. So it's going to, if the lower valence one was a noun, then the higher valence one would be either an adjective or a verb. If the lower valence one was an adjective, then it would have to be a verb for sure. And usually it is a noun verb, but it actually is a valence thing. And because we do that, we can't have phonemic tone and we can't have pitch accent because of how we use it. So you don't have a choice. He talks about how this would be cool to have. You can't in English. It's not going to work. For reduplication, and he says English doesn't have this. English does have this, particularly in motherese. So when we're talking to little children, we'll say things like, "Oh, it's a choo-choo train." That's reduplication. Or, "Oh, you did a good poo-poo." Like shit like that. Like that's reduplication, and we use it with little kids. It's in English motherese, and this means that it can't come out. It probably isn't going to be available to be used for other grammatical purposes. So, again, we don't have it to indicate plurals. We don't have it to indicate intensity, things like this, like quite a few other languages do, right? Like Oddam, well, yeah, a lot of Uto-Aztecan languages use it to indicate, like, plurality or something like that, numericity. Or, and lots of languages use it to indicate intensity, like very, right? We can't do that in English because to an English speaker, it sounds like baby talk, right? And when I was learning Odom, my father actually said, that sounds really primitive, when I showed him how plurals work. And that's what he's thinking, because to his monolingual English-speaking brain, that's baby talk. That's how little tiny kids who don't know what the fuck they're saying yet talk, right? So this is not available to English for other things because it's used here. We have it, and it's stuck in motherese, and it's not going to come out of that. It's stuck there. Number 5, echo responses. Now this one annoys me a little bit, because what's actually happening here is there's an assumption that polar questions most naturally should have a yes or a no response, right? So like, are you coming to the party? Yes or no, right? That is a very modern way of doing this. The entire concept of yes was invented in somewhere in Eurasia, probably about 5,000 years ago. So yeah, this is one where most languages lack it, and you can actually see and lots of even Indo-European languages lack it, because they just were resistant to the incursion of the adoption of this, right? So in general, the Celtic languages lack it. But even look at Chinese. Chinese lacks it. There is no word for yes in Chinese. You can kind of generically, in a lot of cases, use shi, which is sort of like it is. Sort of. But a lot of times that doesn't work, and you have to say the verb in isolation, or you have to say something like ble, or which is like true, or something like that. Like, there isn't a single yes, right? And this contrasts with no. No was invented much, much earlier, and is spread much, much further. So pretty much all languages have some version of no. And like, Chinese actually brought it in at least twice, and it's the same word. It just because of the way it was bouncing around, the phonetic form of it changed. So they're me and bu are really the same word. They're both cognates with English no, but yeah, that's an adventure for another video. Anyway, yeah. So the echo response is just it's like are you going to the party? Instead of saying yes, it would be like, oh, I am going to the party. This is a funny inclusion because that is actually the most likely around the world to be used, and it's also entirely possible in English. So to say that English doesn't have this is ridiculous, because you're literally able to give an example of this in English. You can make any polar question and answer it with an echo response, and it's totally fine in English. People do this. This is how English works. This is available to English. Why are we saying it's not? Number 6, he didn't word it this way, but it's basically the TV distinction in second person pronouns. So like tu and vu. I would argue that English kind of does have this, especially the way that he worded it, because he worded it as like there's no formal you. There kind of is, because there's an informal you. In English, when there's sort of a familiar relationship or a power relationship between the speaker has power over the listener, or they are familiar with each other. The speaker can ask the other person to do something without using any pronoun at all. Right? So it's kind of like, can you help me versus help me? Those are very different things. There's a formality difference between those two things. So there is sort of a tu-vu distinction in English. It's not as, whatever, but it is grammaticalized. And it does have a sort of similar thing to it. So again, this is one where I'm like, why are you including this? Because English kind of does actually have this. And jumping ahead a little bit, number 9, null subjects. The reason that English cannot have null subjects in general is because of this. So he's wrong on 2 of them for one reason. Interesting. Number 7, the one that should have been next, question particles. So this is like ma in Chinese, like Ichuma, are you going? Something like that. English does have these, right? So the classic, teaching English, right? English language arts or ESL, you're gonna say like the way that English forms questions is with subject-aux inversion, right? So you get I am going to the store, and that gets flipped to are you going to the store? And English can do this. This is absolutely true. But as noted, relevant to number 3, we can actually just take the statement and change the tone, the tone contour, the pitch contour. So I am going to the store. I'm going to use a different person, like Joe is going to the store. Okay? And I can turn it into a question just by saying, Joe is going to the store? Now it's a question. It's worded exactly the same way, but the pitch contour. And that's why we can't have tone, because we can do that. But without changing the pitch contour, we can add question particles, right? Kind of the most obvious one is, huh? Or, It's kind of stereotypically Canadian, but it is available outside of Canada. A. So, Joe's going to the store, huh? Joe's going to the store, eh? That's a question. And the Joe's going to the store part has the same pitch contour as the statement. So, this is absolutely a question particle that's stuck onto the end of the sentence. But English is actually so versatile that we have one we could put at the front. We're not even stuck at putting it at the back like, Chinese and Japanese. Japanese has ka. Right? We can put them at the front. So, Joe's going to the store. That's a question. That's a question. So, Joe's going to the store. That's a question. And we can put it at both ends. Or we can change the pitch contour with so to make it a little more obvious that it's a question, right? So, Joe's going to the store? Or, so, Joe's going to the store, huh? So we do have question particles. So this one is nonsense. The claim that we don't have this is stupid because we do have it. We have so many ways to make questions. It's ridiculous. The next one. This one ties into several others later on. And I'm not even sure how I'm going to frame it, so I'm just going to jump into it, right? Number 8. Locative B. I have a few problems with this. One of them being that the thing that they're talking about is not a locative. Locatives are things like at, toward, in, on, between, stuff like that. Things that in English are generally handled by so-called prepositions, which, yeah, they're not actually prepositions in English, but that category of things, right? Not all of them, but a lot of those are locatives in English. Yeah, and the example given, I think he gave the example in Portuguese, but I'm going to use Spanish because I'm slightly more familiar with it. It's basically the same thing. So ser and estar, right? Yo soy versus yo estoy. Estoy or estar is the one that he's saying is the locative, and that's no. What? And English lacks this distinction for a reason that is pretty basic. And that is that what this thing is in English, the to be verb, is just radically completely different in every way from either of these, right? It sort of fills the role of these, but it fills the role of a whole bunch of other shit too. So it's not really like these. The comparison is just weird. And we don't have this locative be because we have, I want to call it is. Is kind of the predominant one, right? Because he is, she is, and then are is sort of just a different pronunciation of it. Like they are, you are, we are. Like those forms are the dominant ones, right? I am, that's a weird, unique one, but anyway, those, they just work so fundamentally differently that bemoaning the fact that we don't have a ser, estar distinction in English is really bizarre to me. It doesn't make sense. I already talked about null subjects. 10. Evidentials. English does sort of have these. Because you can say something like, oh, I heard, or I saw. And now it works because those, it's just so short and simple that it basically acts the same as like a grammaticalized particle. It's not, it kind of isn't, but it kind of is. Like, yeah. It's sort of gray area. So, yeah, 50% he's right. We don't have this. But 100% he's wrong, because we can do this very easily. 11, time independence. This is... so a bunch of these are about tense. English doesn't have tenses, right? And English does have time independence. English, the simple present, which we default to as is, in my just noted analysis, or are, is time independent, right? Because the sky is blue. When? Kind of always. Even at night, like the color, it's like a dark navy blue color. Right? Your generic, stereotypical sky is blue. Dogs have 4 legs. A dog has 4 legs. Simple present, but it's not about the present. Right? And this sort of ties into the locative be thing, because this is doing something very, very different than ser and estar. It's doing something radically different. This next one, 12, hyperspecific tenses. Yeah, we don't have those because we don't have any tenses. That's not how English works. We just don't have tenses. Number 13, he called it, what? Like absolute directions or some shit. One of those terms like that. That is a thing that they are called. So I think that is what he called it. Basically, it's just cardinal directions, right? So instead of talking about giving directions with left and right, which is a stupid way to give directions, you use things like north and south, and English absolutely has this. It's just that your generation, for the most part, if you're younger than me, or even my age, never learned how to fucking use it. So there's like large segments of the English-speaking population that are completely missing a component of English. You don't understand what north is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the people who raised you were retarded. But that's not a failing of English. That's a failing of the people that raised you. Number 14, synthetic future tense. And here, again, the problem is English doesn't have tenses. So what he's saying here is, like, you have this little verb suffix in, like, Italian and Spanish and other languages that actually have verb tenses that marks future. But in English, we use will. I will go to the store. Okay, no, that's not actually future tense. That will is indicating confidence that what is being said will, like, is going to occur. Like, you can't even separate it in English because this is the only way to say it. It's sort of. But we have other versions, like, and you can weaken it, right? So I might go to the store. I should go to the store. Or I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna go to the store, I think. You can weaken it with other things, and we don't count those as verb tense. It's like, is gonna a future marker? Is might a future marker? No. Nobody's arguing that. So why are we arguing that will is a future marker? Particularly since will can be used for things that have already occurred. Things that have... So, right? He will have arrived by now. Right? And this is maybe... you're talking about somebody who took a flight and, so you're talking about they just landed. Like, they took a flight out of town and... oh yeah, it's 10:30. You're supposed to have landed at 9. He will have arrived by now. That's not future. It's about confidence. It's not a tense marker. It's not a future marker. English doesn't have a future marker of any sort. It doesn't have a future tense. 15, distributive numbers. I think we actually don't have that. And number 16, whistled speech. For the most part, we don't have that either. Yeah. So a few of these, granted, we don't have. But a lot of them we do have. Or the reason we don't have them is because we have other shit that blocks it. We can't have tone or pitch accent because of the way we mark things like questions and the distinction between nouns and verbs in a lot of cases. Shit like that. We can't have tone and pitch accent. And we can't really have reduplication outside of motherese because it's viewed as childish. It's viewed as child speak. It's looked down upon. Foreign languages that use reduplication to a naive English speaker sound like little kids talking to each other. It sounds to English speakers like these people don't know what they're doing, like they're little babies. This might explain if you're not aware of this, this might explain a few things to you about the history of colonialism. Just in one sweeping motion, like, whoa, that little thing kind of explains a whole shit ton of stuff. And then there's other dumb shit like the claim that we don't have echo responses. Of course we do. Of course we do. We just have other options because English adopted yes after it was invented. And kind of a tangent to this though, you can actually see when you look at the world languages, you can see that when roughly a lot of shit was invented, like determiners. Right? Basically the things that became like the, right? You can see when and kind of where it was invented and how it spread. And yes is one of these things. You can see when and where roughly it was invented and how it spread. But they're not going to take any of this shit into account because it's complicated and nuanced, and you can't give really simple answers to people, and you know, it doesn't sound as cool and flashy, and it's not easy to repeat at a party. Yeah. Right, and we can't have general null subjects because the way that we have a TV distinction is that the informal you is a null subject. Yeah. So I had some problems with this.